3 spine-chilling hiking horrors revealed. Discover the sinister secrets of haunted trails. The Harrisons were searching for adventure, but what they found in Maplewood was far from ordinary. Mark hoped to shake off the weight of their bustling suburban lives in Atlanta. His wife, Sarah, was wrestling with her insecurities about parenting, while teenage Lily felt the pressure of social media buzz weighing down on her shoulders. Young Tyler simply craved the thrill of outdoor exploration. Just a short drive into the shadowy Appalachian Mountains, they were all blissfully unaware of the horrors that awaited them. When they arrived in Maplewood, the town appeared charming with its quaint buildings and friendly locals. But as they tossed gear into the car for their hike, whispers of strange happenings crept into the atmosphere. "Recent hikers, they just vanished," an elderly man had said, his voice trembling. "There are things in those woods spirits that don't take kindly to intruders." Mark brushed off the warnings with a nervous laugh, eager for an escape from the city grind. As the family ventured into the depths of the forest, the once warm sun seemed to be swallowed by the gnarled trees. Each step deeper into the woods felt heavier, weighted with an unsettling tension. They stumbled across a weathered missing person poster nailed hastily to a tree. A cheerful hiker smiled back at them from the paper, but the truth behind the faded image sent chills racing down Lily's spine. "Look at this," she forced a smile, snapping a picture. Inside, her heart thudded. What if that was them in a few hours? "Do you hear that?" Tyler's words hung in the air, heavy with dread. Soft murmurs seemed to echo around them, mingling with the rustling leaves. The simple hike turned grave, laughter faded as silence swallowed them whole. With every passing moment, shadows danced, flickering in and out of sight. As evening approached, the sun dipped below the mountains, darkness stretching and yawning. Suddenly, Tyler screamed, his voice scratching the air. He pointed at an ancient oak tree etched with symbols that twisted into shapes they couldn't comprehend. Mark's heart raced, an instinct to protect surged within him. Panic clawed their insides. The woods pulsed with an energy something was watching, waiting. Just as the weight of fear threatened to suffocate them, a figure emerged, a ranger, his outline shrouded in shadows. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured, his eyes flickering with a knowledge that felt dark, almost threatening. "It's not safe at night." Before they could respond, an unnatural rustle echoed from the underbrush, sending Tyler and Lily into a state of wide-eyed terror. Was this man a guide or a harbinger of doom? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The woods pressed in even closer now, the air heavy with foreboding. Just past the ranger, something skimmed the edge of their vision, a shadow darting between the trees. Their breaths quickened, fear coursed through their veins like ice. What had they stumbled into? Mark felt the bond of their family strain under the growing pressure. They could hear it now, the insistent whispers that seemed to rise and fall with the wind, promising secrets best forgotten. As they stood trembling, every fiber of their being screamed that they needed to flee, but there was nowhere to run. Then, a scream sliced through the night. It wasn't from any of them, it came from inside the darkened woods, leaving the Harrisons frozen in a fragile moment of horror as dread settled like a stone in their stomachs. What or who was lurking just beyond their sight? The echo of the scream reverberated, twisting the night air around them. It was a sound layered with agony, distant yet impossibly close. Mark's heart raced, pounding in his ears like a war drum. He squinted into the darkness, trying to pierce the veil of shadows. Anxiety gripped him, threatening to choke him. "Did you hear that?" Sarah's voice trembled, barely a whisper. She clutched Tyler tighter, his small body quaking against her. Lily's fingers grazed the cool bark of the ancient oak, desperately trying to ground herself amid the chaos. "We need to go back," she blurted, urgency sparking in her voice. But as each second dragged on, the night felt like quicksand, each heartbeat dragging them deeper. "Just a little longer," Mark started to say, but the ranger cut him off, his voice low and urgent. "You must leave now. There's no safety in these woods after dark," he insisted, darting his eyes around as if the shadows themselves could hear him. There was a sudden rustle in the underbrush behind them. A larger figure moved, stealthy and silent, uncoiling itself from the trees. Mark's stomach dropped. The ranger's expression shifted to one of horror, not fear for the family but for the unseen threat lurking moments away. "Get behind me," he barked, stepping forward, drawing something from his belt. The glint of metal caught the pale light filtering through the leaves. Tyler clutched onto Sarah, eyes wide, while Lily's breath hitched in her throat. "What is it?" Mark dared to ask, his voice cracking. "An old spirit. It's drawn to fear," the ranger muttered tersely, his hands shaking, but not from fear. "It's feeding." From the darkness, a whispering voice floated to them, slithering through the night like a serpent. It promised truth and understanding, but all Mark felt was the tightening vice of dread. He turned to the woods where shadows writhed, desperately scouting for the source of that haunting sound. The whispers grew louder, cascading around them like a chilling wind. A figure slunk into view, unkempt hair that hung in matted strands, eyes hollow and entrancing. It stepped into the moonlight, one foot after another, its movements smooth and deliberate. The contours of its face twisted in an expression that sent terror coursing through them. "Come find me," it crooned, its voice both sweet and malevolent. Lily clamped her hands over her mouth, stifling a scream. "Run!" Mark shouted, breaking the paralysis that had held them. He didn't have to tell them twice. They needed to escape while they still could. They turned, sprinting into the thicket, branches clawing at their clothes, the underbrush thick with unseen threats. Behind them, the ranger shouted for them to stop, but Mark's sense of urgency drowned it out. He had to get his family to safety. "Don't look back," he yelled, pushing ahead, his breath catching in his throat as he chanced a glance over his shoulder. The figure now loomed behind them, like a wraith drifting through time and space, following closely. Silence swallowed the night, only the sound of their frantic footsteps punctuating the air. As they ran deeper, they stumbled into a clearing, moonlight illuminating whatever lay ahead. But instead of solace, it revealed a horrifying sight. A circle of grotesque totems stood ominously in the center, each one carved from the very trees that surrounded them. Symbols sprawled over their surfaces, symbols like those on the tree that had invoked their panic. Fear seeped back into Mark's heart, binding him with terrifying possibilities. Then came a laugh, chilling and high-pitched, echoing around the clearing. It was the voice of the wraith, now closer, now emboldened. "You've entered my domain." Mark clenched his fists, a surge of heat coursing through him. He would not let that thing take his family. "We have to fight," he shouted, taking a step forward as he surveyed the totems. The night thickened, dread overshadowing hope as he scanned the symbols around them. There had to be a way out. Suddenly, a shadow lunged from behind a totem, spiraling towards them faster than the eye could follow. It was time to uncover the secrets of the forest or risk being swallowed by its sinister grasp. What would they discover, and would it be enough to endure the night's horrors? Mark stumbled backward as the shadow burst forth, the air thickening with a palpable dread. It was a figure, but not like the wraith. This one seemed twisted, its limbs elongated and jagged. Eyes glared at them, glowing like embers in the night. "Get back!" the ranger shouted, brandishing his weapon. He stepped toward the advancing shadow, his hands steady, but fear flickered across his face. Mark's instincts screamed. He lurched forward, pulling Sarah and Tyler away from danger, adrenaline flooding his veins. "We need to hide," he yelled, his voice thin and strained. But there was nowhere to go. The clearing was wide open, the totems surrounding them like prison bars. Each carved face seemed to leer, mocking their fear. Over there. Lily pointed to a darkened corner beyond the circle of totems. Branches hung low, creating a makeshift cave of shadow. Move! Mark urged, half dragging Sarah and Tyler across the ground. They dove into the shadows as the ranger barked commands, setting himself against the creature, ready to fight. No. They had to escape, he told himself. They had to get to safety. Mark held on to the hope that the totems might offer shelter, their strange symbols perhaps a ward against the creeping darkness. They huddled close, hearts pounding, breath shallow. The sound of the ranger's determined shouts echoed erratically, punctuated by wet thuds and a chilling laughter that slithered beneath his voice. It was a cacophony of chaos, fear clawing deeper. Mark, Lily whispered, her voice trembling against the weight of the night. What do we do? I don't know, he admitted, panic rising in his throat. He turned to the totems, desperately seeking guidance. Symbols danced before his eyes, faces twisted in agony, hands reaching out. It felt like they were alive, breathing in unison with the darkness. Suddenly, without warning, the wraith's voice rose above the din, weaving its way through the chaos, soft yet malevolent. He cannot protect you, you are mine. The air grew thick, Mark's breath hitched. The shadows writhed, dark fingers stretching toward them, whispering secrets drenched in malice. Each word caressed his skin, an icy grip invading his very being. He focused on the totems, searching for something. Anything. Wait. He called out, as a strategy took root in his mind. Those symbols. They mean something. He motioned to the shapes, eyes glued to the intricate carvings. What if we— But before he could finish, the shadow lunged again, closer, snapping its jaws with a deafening crack. The ranger's fashioning noise met with a terrible scream, abrupt and slicing, like a knife through the fog of fear. Mark's body went rigid, dread electrifying his spine. No! Sarah cried out, her voice mingling with panic and disbelief. Mark could feel the hot breath of the creature flooding the cave. It was close, too close. I want to let it take us, he declared, lunging for a nearby totem that drew him like a moth to flame. He pressed his hand against the rough wood, tracing the strongest symbol, a spiral enclosing a face. It felt alive, pulsing. The wraith recoiled slightly, seeming to sense the stirrings within the totem. Mark? Lily's voice quivered. What did you find? I think it's a way to fight back. He gasped, excitement and fear battling within him. We have to activate it, just like it was meant to be. Tyler urged him on, wide-eyed. Do it, Dad. Do it. As Mark began chanting the words etched into the totem, a sudden gust of wind howled through the clearing, but nothing felt right. The shadows closed in, and the wraith screeched in fury. Silence fell, pregnant with tension and desperation. In that moment, Mark realized he was standing at a precipice, both his family's fate and his own wrapped in the whispers of the forest. Would the totem protect them, or would it seal their doom? Echoes of the night hugged close, and a final question emerged, sharp and menacing. What did the forest truly want from them? A booming laughter cut through the air, a dark promise that things were only going to get worse. The moment Mark's voice faded, the shadows surged, ensnaring them. A sense of despair wrapped around him like a thick fog, suffocating. The totem pulsed beneath his hand, a heartbeat against the encroaching darkness. He felt a violent quaking at his core, urging him to move, to act. Mark! It's coming! Sarah screamed, the tremor in her voice a razor against his resolve. He turned just in time to see the creature, its gnarled teeth snapping dangerously close. The ranger had fallen, and the air cracked with the tension of life slipping away. Channel the energy. The symbols. Mark shouted, looking at the totems. We need to focus. Focus on what? Lily's voice shivered, fear and desperation merging. Nothing makes sense. On the face there's a pattern. Mark scrambled, tracing more designs on the totem. They twisted together, abstract and horrifying, but a plan began to stitch itself into his mind. We need to awaken it, to give it power. The creature howled, an unholy sound that vibrated through the ground, rattling their bones. It lunged again, and Mark felt the breath of death sweep over him. He could face it, or let despair swallow them whole. The choice tightened like a noose around his thoughts. Help me. Words. Whatever you remember. He shouted over the chaos, the acutely aware weight of urgency crashing upon them. Tyler, with wide, frightened eyes nodded. I saw something on TV once, a chant. Say it. Mark urged, directing his focus back to the totem as Tyler stumbled over syllables. Suddenly, Mark felt an electric current surge from the totem, a tremor that rippled through his palm. Yes. Keep going. I summoned. Tyler's voice broke, faltering. But Lily gripped his shoulder, her face fierce with determination. Summon the light to push back the shadows. She shouted, the panic igniting a fire within. They all joined in the chant, voices rising against the creature. The ground trembled, the symbols on the totems glowing a bright, ghostly hue. The creature screeched, the sound raw and haunting, as tendrils of shadow recoiled from the light. It's working. Just a little more. Mark urged, feverish hope igniting. But the wraith erupted through the chaos, its laughter burrowing into the marrow of their bones. You think this will save you? You are nothing but pawns. The plan seemed fraying, a web about to snap, but Mark focused. Push. Push. We're stronger together. As they chanted with fervor, the shadows flared and licked at the edges of the glowing light. Mark could feel darkness clawing, but he pressed on, his heart pounding like a war drum. Then, as if summoned by their desperation, the totem's power surged, erupting in a flash of light. Mark felt something deep awaken within him, clawing its way through fear, hatred, and despair. It was not just a chant, it was a plea for survival, a raw instinct to fight for the ones he loved. But the darkness wouldn't yield easily. Mark could see it swirling, infectious and sickening, trying to break through the barrier. We have to be stronger than it. He bellowed, desperation cracking his voice. At that moment, the creature lunged, mouth wide, a cavern of horror. And all went dark. Silence enveloped them, smothering. Mark's senses faded as a dreadful emptiness swallowed his thoughts. Had they failed? A flicker of understanding crossed his mind. Stay together, he whispered, but he couldn't tell if he was speaking to them or himself. Where was the light? The protective barrier seemed to dissolve, one tenuous thread unraveling in threadbare reality. Mark's heart thundered in the abyss, fear taking on physical form. As he tried to grasp the fleeting edges of consciousness, something whispered back, silken and treacherous, you will never escape, and with that, the abyss shifted once more, revealing something sinister lurking just beyond their reach. Would they find the strength to pull back from the precipice, or had they plunged into the darkness for good? Mark gasped as the darkness receded like a wave pulling back from the shore, revealing a distorted reflection of the forest. The trees twisted grotesquely, their branches curling like skeletal fingers reaching for him. The air was thick, stifling, the scent of damp earth mixed with something fetid. He blinked, struggling to adjust to the eerie dimness. Mark. Are you okay? Sarah's voice was muffled, as if she were speaking from miles away. Where are we? He croaked, his throat dry and scratchy. The familiarity of their surroundings felt warped, a distorted echo of the woods they had traversed. Everyone's scattered. Lily's voice barely broke through the shadowy haze. The disorientation gripped him tightly. Panic surged. Tyler. Sarah. He called, but only silence answered back, thick and suffocating. Fear nestled deep in his chest. He stumbled forward, his foot catching on something slick. He looked down, his stomach churning. It was someone's backpack crushed, torn, a gash of cold dread creeping into his bones. Guys? He recognized the weight in his voice. The fear. The darkness was somehow alive, taunting him with echoes of his friends. A low whisper curled around him, chilling and seductive, coaxing him deeper into the woodland nightmare. You can't escape it. Mark's breath quickened. He had to move. He felt the totem's pulse deep within his pocket, a faint glow offering a weak reassurance. Stay together. He urged the shadows, knowing they had to unite, had to find each other, or risk being consumed. Taking a deep breath, Mark stepped toward the slippery path ahead, each footfall a battle against the fear gnawing at his sanity. With each step, old feelings clawed at him, memories of the ranger's death insinuating each dark crevice of his mind. Sarah's voice, now closer, wavered with anxiety. Behind you. He spun around. The creature loomed, an amorphous figure swelling in a patch of obscured moonlight. Its eyes, dark voids, pinned him in place, a predator savoring the moment before the kill. You're already ours, it hissed, twisting its mouth in a sickening grin, teeth dripping with shadow. Without thinking, Mark fumbled for the totem, fingers trembling against the cold surface. He shut his eyes tightly, mind racing as he recalled their chant. We summon the light. The darkness surged closer, wrapping around his ankles like a chill, wet fog. You cannot fight what you embrace, it growled, voice layered with malicious glee. No! Mark shouted, flinging his hand forward. We won. Suddenly, the entangled shadows recoiled, a rending scream melting into the night as a burst of shimmering light erupted from the totem. It throbbed anew, their chant reverberating through the air, setting fire to the tendrils that sought to engulf him. Yes! Mark could feel the energy coursing through his veins, echoing back the resolve of his friends. Come to me. Be with me. Input rushed back, forming around him again. Tyler, Sarah, and Lily materializing from the darkness, faces etched with terror but eyes blazing with shared determination. Fight! Tyler said, and they poured their combined energy into the totem, the brightness intensifying, illuminating the corners of their temporary prison. But the creature shrieked, thrashing against the barrier, the air vibrating with its fury. You will burn. You will break. It lunged forward, claws slashing through the light, tearing apart the fragile hope they were weaving. In that moment, fear festered in Mark's gut. What if this was not enough? What if they weren't strong enough to withstand the darkness? Together. Mark bellowed, gripping the totem tighter. We're not alone. As the tendrils surged once more, breaking through the dawning light, he grasped the flickering hope they had cultivated, a final plea igniting deep in his heart. But then, everything went black again, darkness swallowing them whole once more. Would they rise again, or had they yielded to the shadows forever? Mark woke, gasping for breath, the taste of wet earth filling his mouth. Panic clutched at him, disorientation spinning his thoughts. He blinked against the dimness, shadows swirling like smoke around him. The weight in his pocket was familiar, the totem, still warm, still pulsing gently. Sarah. Tyler. Lily. He shouted, voice shaking. No response. The silence felt like a weight pressing down, heavy and unyielding. He pushed himself to his feet, knees trembling. The forest was eerily quiet, the only sound a low rustling that whispered just beyond sight. He scanned the area, the slick ground glistening under the faintest flickers of light. Where had they gone? The fear snaked around his spine, a gripping reminder that in this place, they were alone. Mark stumbled through the underbrush, each snap of twigs beneath his feet felt like thunder in the stillness. Guys! His voice echoed against the warped trees, meeting no willing ear. He had to find them, had to see their faces, untainted by the choking terror that wrapped around him. That whisper returned, curling around him like smoke. They will not come back. They can't escape. Mark clenched his fists. He wouldn't listen. Wouldn't let it consume him. With shaky breaths, he shoved his hands deep into his pockets, fingers brushing against the totem's surface, grounding himself like a lifeline. Suddenly, a rustle nearby froze him. "Sarah?" he whispered, dread thickening in his throat. He steadied himself, squinting into the darkness. There, something flickered, a shadow just outside the corner of his eye. Panic surged within him. He turned, eyes darting back and forth, breath quickening. Tyler. Lily. Each call trembled, becoming more desperate. A figure materialized from the dark, a silhouette draped in a shroud of shadows, face obscured. "Mark," it croaked, voice twisted, mirthless. "You wanted to find them?" "No. Get away," he shouted, stumbling backward. The darkness pulsed, seemed to synchronize with the beat of his heart. "You are too late." The figure drifted closer, a clawed hand reaching forward, elongating as it moved. "They are lost and you will be too." Mark's heart raced, echoing the terror gripping him. He turned and fled, panic-fueled adrenaline coursing through his veins. Every step surged onto another layer of fear, every branch snapping like a warning. The air turned colder. Behind him, the whispers grew louder, filling his ears with tormenting laughter. "Join us." Mark embraced the darkness. "No," he gasped, pushing through the undergrowth, branches tearing at his clothes. The totem glowed faintly now, a feeble defense against the terror nipping at his heels. He had to find his friends, had to believe they were still out there somewhere. Ahead, a beam of light cut through the trees, a glowing beacon piercing the night. Hope ignited in his chest. Maybe it was them. He charged forward, arms pushing branches aside, heart racing wildly. As he closed in, the light flickered and surged, casting grotesque shadows around him. Each flicker displayed glimpses of faces twisted in anguish, silhouettes of Sarah, Tyler, and Lily crying out but unable to speak. "No! I'm coming!" he shouted, voice breaking as tears pricked at his eyes. He dashed forward, desperation fueled by the sheer anguish reflected in their faces. But before he could reach them, a shadow surged from nowhere, barbed claws grabbing his shirt, holding him fast. Panic surged again. "You're not alone, Mark," it hissed, tightening its grip, already pulling him back into the void. "You belong to us now." Mark's heart raced as the bonds of darkness pulled tighter. "No!" he screamed, memories flooding him, jokes, laughter, friendship. The faces of his friends fading into a dark abyss. With one last attempt, he reached for the totem, shouting their chant, but the words seemed to evaporate in his mouth, choked by fear. The darkness flooded his vision, monstrous laughter echoing, drowning him in despair. Could they even save him? Or was he destined to join the countless lost souls forever? And as he fell deeper into the void, one thing became painfully clear, something darker than he had ever known awaited them all. A new silence crept in, threatening to consume the last glimmer of hope. What strange fate had befallen his friends? And was there even time left to fight? Mark's scream faded into a haunting silence, swallowed by the enveloping shadows. He felt weightless, hovering in despair, pulled toward an unseen abyss. Memories swirled like autumn leaves in a storm, the laughter of his friends echoing, their faces morphing into unimaginable horrors. Suddenly, a sharp jolt ignited awareness. Mark gasped, finding himself sprawled amidst the leaf-strewn forest floor. The specter was gone, but the oppressive darkness still clung to him, tightening its grip on his heart. He pushed himself up, shaking off disorientation, but the sense of hopelessness lingered, coiling around him like a serpent. Sarah. Tyler. Lily. Panic clawed at his throat again as dread washed over him. He could feel their absence like a physical ache. What was this place? Where were they? As if in answer, a ragged whisper floated through the trees, sharp and chilling. "They're not coming back, you know that." The voice cooed, playful yet threatening, a mockery of the friends he sought. Mark whirled around, desperate to locate the source, but the darkness danced with deceit, blurring his vision. He could sense something watching him, something that thrived on his fear. "Stop it!" he shouted, the defiance sounding weak even to his own ears. He stumbled forward, each step growing heavier, the woods around him closing in. Terrified branches clawed at him, and more shadows slithered at the edges of his vision, retreating just as he turned to face them. The totem pulsed in his pocket, radiating warmth against his leg. It felt like a heartbeat, his heartbeat, a tether to a reality he desperately wanted to cling to. With trembling fingers, he pulled it out, its glow providing a flickering assurance against the consuming darkness. "Where are you?" he pleaded, more to himself than anyone else. The forest held its breath. For a moment, silence reigned. Then, piercing laughter echoed from behind. He whipped around, eyes wide, the flickering light illuminating hideous faces formed by the shadows, a twisted mockery of his friends, contorted in anguish. Their mouths moved, yet no sound escaped, only the haunting echo of their names sending a chill down his spine. Mark, one shadow mouthed, its voice a cacophony of whispers that slithered into his mind. The urge to flee gripped him hard, but he was rooted in place, entranced by the ghostly figures. Suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a single entity, a grotesque form, swirling with darkness. Mark tried to suppress a scream, his breath shallow as it advanced. "You're not afraid of the night, are you?" it taunted, voice slick like oil on water. "We've been waiting for you." Mark blinked, realizing he was no longer just hunting for his friends, he was prey, marked by dread. He spun around, heart thundering. In the distance, between the gnarled trees, a flicker of light emerged, strong and steady. His heart caught in his throat. Was it a cruel mirage, or genuine hope? "Follow it," the sinister whisper teased at his ear, already wrapping around his will, enticing him to give in. "No!" he hissed back, the fight fueling his resolve. He dashed toward the light, the forest seeming to shift and shift again, as if the world itself fought against him. Branches lashed out, tearing at his skin, laughter growing louder, more desperate in its intent to pull him back. Just as he reached the clearing, he froze. The light revealed a figure standing in the center. Sarah, her face pale, eyes wide with despair. "Mark," she mouthed, an anguished scream trapped in her throat. But before he could call to her, the shadows surged, enveloping him once again. "You are ours," they howled, drowning the world in darkness once more. Mark felt the totem slip from his fingers, shattering into 1,000 shards of light against the ground. He fell, lost in the embracing night. Had he lost everyone? Would the shadows claim him too? And as he descended into the depths of terror, a chilling realization dawned: the light was false, offering only fleeting glimpses of faces long gone. Could he ever escape this nightmare, or was it merely the beginning of something far worse? The darkness wrapped around Mark like a suffocating shroud. He felt weightless again, but this time, there was no eerie stillness. The shadows bubbled and churned, a nightmarish storm that threatened to swallow him whole. Visions of twisted faces flickered in the blackness, scratching at the remnants of his sanity. With a jolt, he landed hard on the cold, damp forest floor. Gasping, he ripped his eyes open, heart pounding, blood racing. The shadows had receded, but he could still hear the whispers, like the rustling of dead leaves. The trees loomed tall and menacing, their bark gnarled and sharp. "Sarah!" he shouted again, the call echoing through the stillness that followed. What had happened to them? Desperation clawed at him, knotting his insides. The air thickened with a sense of impending dread, pressing down upon him like a weight he couldn't shake off. A sudden rustle made him spin around. There! A figure darted between the trees, just a flash of white, gone before he could register what he saw. His heart raced even faster. Tyler? He took off in pursuit, limbs moving quicker than he thought possible. But the forest betrayed him, every step forward seemed to drag him deeper into chaos. Branches snagged at his clothes, roots tripped him, and shadows flickered out of the corners of his vision, laughing, mocking. Stop! He pleaded, voice cracking. The darkness fiercely pulsated around him, as if the woods had become a living entity with a singular purpose, to torment him. A low, guttural laugh rolled through the trees, vibrating through his bones. Leave while you still can, the echoes hissed. He stumbled into a small clearing, breathless. The air was oddly still, the oppressive presence of darkness seeming further away. In the center stood an ancient stone archway, covered with strange symbols that glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Despite the ominous aura, it beckoned to him, each breath whispering secrets of escape. Go, it urged in a voice that seemed to pull at the very fibers of his being. But something deep within warned him. This wasn't right. Sarah, Tyler, Lily. He could hardly finish the names before a blinding flash of light erupted from the arch, bathing the clearing in a sickly glow. Shapes writhed within it, both heavenly and horrifying. He felt drawn to it against his will, his body tingling with the energy pulsating from the stones. Step inside suddenly, he was no longer alone. A figure appeared before him, Sarah, eyes wide yet empty, skin shimmering as if made of glass. Mark, help me. She mouthed, her voice lost in the consuming void. He reached out instinctively, but a violent force yanked him back. Shadows exploded from the ground, wrapping around him like chains, dragging him towards the arch. Do not listen. Another voice shouted from behind him, a voice that sounded familiar yet twisted. Tyler emerged from the shadows, desperation etched into his features. It's a trap. Don't trust the light. Mark's heart raced, torn between the angelic plea of Sarah and the frantic warnings of Tyler. Time froze. Every second stretched painfully long as he struggled against the chains of darkness. The archway beckoned louder, shimmering with promises of salvation that felt too good to be true. He could hear the shadows whispering echoes of his deepest fears. What do I do? He screamed into the night. But the darkness only laughed. It knew what it wanted. As the shadows tightened their grip, Mark felt himself pulled toward the light, toward Sarah and the promise of freedom. But was it freedom or annihilation? With more strength than he thought he had, he screamed back at the shadows, no. And then, a sudden stillness fell. The light flickered. Just for an instant, Mark found clarity. But clarity leads to realization. He was caught in a web of deceit, and the real horror was yet to surface. Choose, a voice whispered. What choice would he make? Would he follow the light or risk everything to save his friends? And in that breathless moment, as the shadows swirled around him, choking his resolve, a chilling question lingered in the air: what price would he pay to escape this nightmare? The moment hung in the air, thick with uncertainty. Mark's heartbeat drummed in his ears, loud and frantic, drowning out the mocking laughter of the shadows. He looked frantically between Sarah's luminous figure and Tyler's distressed face. Which way? His voice was raw, desperation clawing at him like the very branches that surrounded. The darkness pulsed around him, tightening, squeezing the breath from his lungs. The churning whispers grew louder, cramming into his mind, a cacophony of dread and confusion. No! He shouted again, but his voice was swallowed whole by the shadows. Mark! Sarah's face flickered, her transparent form wavering like a candle fighting the wind. Please! I need you. But Tyler's face was resolute, eyes burning with fear. Fight it, Mark. You know what this is. It's a trick. Stay with me. His brain felt like it was splitting in two, one side pleading for Sarah's light and the other warning him of the darkness. The chains of shadow gripped tighter, sharp and cold, rattling the last threads of his sanity. With sheer willpower, he focused on Tyler's voice, trying to drown out the enchanting call of the arch. "I can't leave you," he yelled, and in a sudden surge, yanked his arm away from the shadowy tendrils, pushing back with every ounce of strength he had. The shadows lunged back, recoiling, as if struck. Mark stumbled forward, feeling a strange surge of energy course through his veins. Maybe this was the answer: the fight against the darkness was winnable. But he couldn't let Sarah fade away into the void. Her glassy eyes begged for help, and it twisted his stomach into knots. Mark's shadows clawed at his heels, angry and spiteful, their whispers morphing into furious screeches. He took a step back, caught between the light and the void, a heart-wrenching decision slicing through him like a knife. With a sudden clarity, he remembered his friends. He couldn't abandon them. "You're right," he shouted, accentuating every syllable. "I want to follow you. Not now, not ever." The shadows seethed, recoiling in furious waves, their laughter transforming into furious screams. Mark pushed forward toward Tyler, forcing himself away from the mesmerizing light of the archway. He could feel the chains dissolve slightly, loosening their grip as he broke free from the spell. "Come on!" Tyler shouted, his own arms straining against the creeping darkness. "We need to find another way." In that same instant, the ground beneath them trembled. The trees shifted and groaned, sending waves of panic crashing through Mark's chest. "What's happening?" he gasped, glancing back at the arch. The flash of light pulsed furiously, now flickering in anger as it sensed their rebellion. Sarah's image flared, her face twisting with agony. "Mark, help me. Please. I'll be okay, just take my hand." "No!" Tyler shouted, pulling Mark away. "This isn't real. Don't listen to it." Like a thunderclap, a crack echoed through the clearing. The archway split open wider, revealing a swirling vortex of light and shadow better defined now, a swirling monster craving souls. From it spilled more figures, lost souls twisting with anguish, arms reaching out for freedom. "Run!" Tyler screamed, yanking Mark by the arm. His instincts kicked in, and they turned swiftly, but the shadows lunged again, this time with fierce determination. "Mark!" Sarah cried, her voice piercing through the chaos. "I can save you. Just trust me." "What's real?" Mark shouted, panic rising. "What if this is just another lie?" The ground shook violently as towering shadows swirled closer, hungry for them, and Mark felt every hair on his body rise. "Together!" Tyler yelled, and with a burst of adrenaline, they charged away from the archway, navigating through the forest that twisted and turned as though alive, shadows and light fighting for their souls. But as they ran, a haunting thought gripped Mark: if he turned his back on Sarah, what horrors awaited her? A voice echoed, piercing from above, "You will regret this choice," and with every fleeing step, Mark felt the weight of doom creeping back into his heart. Reverberating, a chilling reminder that no escape was ever truly complete. What awaited them in the darker depths of the woods? Would they find their way back, or was the shadow lurking in the heart of the forest hungry for their return? The darkness loomed heavily over the clearing as Mark and Tyler sprinted through swirling shadows, fear clawing at their heels. Each step felt weighted with the terror of the unseen creature pursuing them. "We have to find the others," Mark panted, urgency rushing through him. "Stick together," Tyler urged, grasping Mark's arm tightly. They dashed into the depths of the forest, shadows twisting in their wake. Suddenly, flat branches whipped past, pulling at their clothes. Their breath came in ragged gasps, the woodsy aroma tainted by something rotten. Fearful dread hung thick in the air. "Over there." Tyler pointed. A narrow path split the 500-year-old oaks, faint traces of moonlight flickering through the canopy, casting eerie patterns on the ground ahead. Mark hesitated, heart racing, wondering if the beating light meant safety or doom. "Trust it," Tyler coaxed, a shimmer of hope glinting in his eyes. Together, they pushed forward, driving through the thick underbrush until they emerged into another clearing. "Sarah!" Mark called, worry biting through him. "Lily!" The only response was the rustle of wind against leaves. Despair rippled through him. Glancing around, he noticed symbols carved into the trees, similar to the totems they had encountered before. Could these offer protection? "Look!" Tyler pointed to a shimmering dot in the distance. "It's the ranger." Disoriented, they rushed toward what they hoped was a path to safety. But as they ventured closer, the figure faded, dispersing into the shadows like mist. Mark's stomach dropped. "It's another trick," Tyler whispered dreadfully. Shadows danced around them, mocking their desperation. "We need to keep moving." "Where?" Mark felt helplessness grip him firmly. "They could already be gone, not yet." Tyler insisted, grasping Mark's arm. "We have to keep searching, or they might slip away for good." Mark nodded, his resolve hardening. As they traversed the clearing, suddenly, a piercing scream echoed through the trees, the sound chilling their bones. "No!" Mark shrieked, instinctively sprinting toward the noise, adrenaline fueling his every step. He pushed through a dense thicket as the world around him warped and shifted, shadows swirling like smoke. Then, they entered a wider circle, a grotesque formation of jagged stones, totems taller than they were, shrouded in an unholy darkness. At the center, a bright light flickered, a beacon beckoning them. "Sarah! Lily!" Mark's voice trembled, desperation wrapping around each call. But just as the flickering light started to clarify, it suddenly dimmed, morphing into something sinister. "It's a trap!" Tyler shouted, eyes wide with realization, yanking Mark back just as a shadow lunged for them, twisting through the air like a predator. It missed, retreating into the depths of dark corners as they dashed toward the stones. "No more games!" Mark bellowed, the embedded symbols igniting a spark of hope. "These they could protect us." He moved closer, hands trembling against one of the totems, tracing the eerie symbols that seemed to pulse under his touch. "Mark, it's not safe. We can't linger," but he pressed on, whispering words that felt strangely familiar. As the last syllable escaped his lips, the totem erupted in a molten glow, pushing away the darkness momentarily. Shadows writhed, screeching in anger. Tyler gasped. "It's working." And just like that, the area transformed, the oppressive feeling lifted, sun breaking through the trees, illuminating the hidden figures of Sarah and Lily, who stumbled into view, eyes wide with disbelief. "Mark!" Lily shouted, rushing to embrace him. Relief flooded Mark as he returned her hug. "You found us finally." As they regrouped, Sarah took a step forward, urgency painted across her face. "The forest, it'll be angry. We need to leave, now." "What about the ranger?" Tyler asked, breathing heavily. "He's gone, we need to get out of here." Sarah's voice was fierce, shaking from the residual fight-or-flight adrenaline. They turned carefully, forming a circle, loyalty overwhelming fear. "Together, we fight," Mark declared, gripping the glinting totem against his chest, the warmth of its power enveloping him like a protective mantle. With quickened breaths, they ran through the woods, navigating the treacherous path. The trees seemed to form walls around them, darkened limbs that creaked ominously. But as they kept moving, courage flooded through Mark's veins. "We can make it!" he shouted, determination underpinning his words. The totem thrummed at his side, guiding them deeper into the woods until the distant shapes of Maplewood appeared. Just as relief washed over them, a frantic whisper slithered through the trees, "You'll never escape, they belong to the shadows." Mark's stomach turned, dread creeping into his bones. Ignoring it, they pressed on, pushing through the underbrush where the first signs of dawn began to break. The sun emerged, bright and fierce, banishing the night's terror into oblivion. As they finally reached the car, hearts pounding in triumph, Mark turned back one last time, a wave of finality washing over him. We made it, he murmured, clutching the totem tightly. But rumors circulated through Maplewood, whispers of them the irrefutable lure of darkness and fear. It claimed a handful every year, tethering them to ancestral curses, shadows waiting for the perfect moment to rise. Not now, he whispered, feeling the bonds of the totem vibrate as if alive. No more lingering nightmares. With one last look at the woods that had threatened to consume them, the Harrisons clambered into the vehicle, a collective sigh escaping their lips. The road twisted into the light, miles of liberation laying ahead. Family first, Mark said, basking in the hope that kindled between them. Together, they drove away from the haunted trails, the stories of terror becoming intertwined with the lessons of survival, forever etched in their hearts. And yet as they sped away, a cold wind curled through the trees, knowing their footsteps were now a part of the shadows, and that the woods would never truly forget. Don't let this gripping tale be the last you hear. You need to subscribe now for more exclusive stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and ensure we keep sharing these chilling adventures. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. What do you think awaits the Harrisons next? And don't wait even one more second to share this with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let's spread the intrigue.